Hi everyone, this is Angela. Welcome back to Muay Ying, the podcast. If you're watching on video, the setting today is a little bit different than usual. I'm actually visiting my partner's hometown in Sakonagon, and there's this amazing lighting with this wooden furniture. So try to take advantage of the free time that I have and also to film this amazing lighting that's not just my small apartment building. I hope you guys have all been well. I've spent the last several days here in Sakonagon. My partner is from this village within the province that actually celebrates Christmas. And we came last year to see the Christmas festivities. And as we are, well, by the time this podcast will be out, it will be the beginning of 2026. And I hope that you guys will find a way to go towards your goals in any capacity possible. Our topic today is Shin conditioning. And I feel like this is something that I think a lot of people who are not within combat sports see, especially with these videos of people kicking steel things and baseball bats and things like that. Social media doesn't help as well. So I do want to take this time and this episode to debunk some myths and actually get into ways that you can practically condition your shins that don't involve any of the bro science stuff. And hopefully by now, you know that bro science is not on par with who I am, what I represent, and the kind of athletes that I would like to see in the future. So I'm just here doing my part, doing a lot of research, especially when I put these podcast episodes together, since these are the longest form of content that I make. You've heard the stories. You've definitely seen the videos. Guys like gritting their teeth while either smashing like a rolling pin onto their shin, rolling their leg until it's black and blue, all in the name of killing their nerves. So killing their nerves is the idea that real fighters, real Muay Thai practitioners have to go through some brutal, almost medieval process of destroying some natural parts of your body. And it still persists as one of the most toxic and uninformed areas in combat sports. There are many, believe me, but I would say that this is still very much there. So let's take the time to unpack this. We're going to park the bro science and talk about what's actually happening. So what's the actual science, what the research says, what are the real biological processes, and more importantly, what actually works, what's a waste of time, and how can you actually build stronger, more resilient bones for your shin. A lot of people, especially when they start training or if they kick the bag for the first time, this really, really hurts my legs. And then sometimes, at least this is what happened to me, and I know a lot of my friends as well, my legs hurt when I kick the bag, when I kick the pads, when I do sparring or whatever, it hurts my shins so much. Do you have any advice for how I can toughen my shins up, right? And then I think this opens the can of worms for these quote unquote old school ways of conditioning the shins. The whole premise of this, which is something I used to believe, is like, quote unquote deadening the nerves, killing the nerves so that you can kick as hard as you want without it hurting. But it's a complete misunderstanding of what is actually happening. Pain is your body's alarm system. If you actually killed the nerves in your shin, you lose all sensation in your shin. You could get a tiny stress fracture and not feel it, which is something that happens to a lot of people that train a lot because they start ignoring what their body is trying to tell them. So if you get a stress fracture, you could keep training on it and it could turn into this full-on catastrophic break that can either put a gigantic pause in your career or end your career altogether. Within the last year, I think we've seen quite a couple people within the Muay Thai community that have broke their shins either within the first round or second round of a fight because they kicked closer to the ankle. But what's more probable happening is not like a freak accident. They probably had a stress fracture. And then in a fight, you're throwing things at full power. People are also doing things at full power. So it could just be the perfect storm, so to speak. So what we don't actually want is nerve death. What we want are two key biological adaptations. The first is bone remodeling, and the second is nerve desensitization rather than killing the nerves altogether. So for bone remodeling, let's talk about Wolff's law, and that's Wolff, Wolff. And this concept is the foundation of all strength training, I would say. Wolff's law basically states that your bones will adapt to the specific loads placed upon them. Your body is incredibly efficient. It doesn't waste resources building super bone if you're just sitting on a couch. But if you consistently apply stress to the bones, like the repetitive impact of running, weightlifting, and in the case of Muay Thai, kicking things, your body starts getting the message. Those impacts, they create tiny microscopic cracks in the bone tissue. And this is very different from stress fractures. And these tiny microscopic cracks allow your body to respond to this new stress by initiating a repair cycle. And it doesn't do this by just kind of patching up the tiny little microscopic cracks in a bone. It rebuilds the area to be stronger and denser than it was before in order for your bones to be better prepared for that same kind of stress in the future. So again, running, weightlifting, kicking, just within the realm of Muay Thai. And this process of your bones becoming stronger with the stress to prevent something drastic from happening from the stress is called ossification, or you can just call it bone remodeling. And this happens over months and years. It's a slow, steady cycle of microfracture, intelligent repair, microfracture, intelligent repair. When you look at very experienced fighters, this is what they call gaduk moy in Thai. So gatuk means bone and muay means fighting. And when you get fighting bones, you get these really, really hard shins. Not just shins, but like, forearms from taking impact from sparring and fights. And this is what turns the tibia bone, aka the shin bone, and that area that the front of the shin bone is in, from a relatively sensitive bone and sensitive area into a dense and resilient weapon that you can use. Now let's talk about the nerves. So the desensitization part. So I have never rolled anything on my shins because I found that over time with consistent training, even within the first few weeks, I was like, oh, my shins aren't hurting anywhere as much as they were my very first day, even if they were still bruising quite a bit. But wait, if the nerves aren't actually dying or being killed, then why does it stop hurting so much? Think of your nerve ending, so the point of contact where you touch the skin on other things or upon impact. Think of them as a sensitive alarm system. The very, very first time you hit a heavy bag, right? Or if you're a fighter, think about the very first time that you fought with no shin guards on. That alarm from your nerves, it goes off. It's a new threat. It's loud. It's sounding off because your body really believes that it's a threat. Your brain therefore gets this massive pain signal. But as you train consistently and you progressively expose your shins to that same controlled impact, your nervous system adapts. So you keep kicking the bag, you keep hitting pads, you keep sparring, you regularly fight. The nerve endings then become less reactive to that same stimulus. The alarm is still working, and you'll definitely feel the nerves working when you get a real injury, like broken bone, or when you cut your skin open. I don't know if you've ever seen like two people clashing shins, and then one of them has that front of the skin, the leg just like slit open and reveal the bone. So if that happens, something on that level happens, you will definitely feel it because again, the nerves are still there. But in the cases of training, your nerves stop screaming at you for every single impact because it just doesn't make sense to keep sounding an alarm for something happening repeatedly that isn't putting your life in danger. It's a reversible adaptation though, in how you perceive pain, not permanent damage. Meaning when you don't train for a while, let's say months, years, and you start kicking the bag again, it might regress a little bit in terms of like, oh, this hurts more than the last time I trained, but it's never going to go back to like day one, assuming that you've been training for a really long time. Like I've been training for 13, 14 years. If I took a break for 3 months and I start kicking the bag again, I might get a little bruising and I might feel it on my legs a little bit more than 3 months ago, but it's never ever going to be like my first few months of training. Okay, so now that you kind of see the parts that are happening within the body that you can't physically look at, so you can't physically see the bone remodeling happening. You can't physically see the nerves at work and the nerve desensitization at work. We will add another thing into the mix, and that's the muscles that you are building around your shin bone. That muscle that's right in front of the shin is called the tibialis anterior. And when you train more, either in terms of Muay Thai or do specific types of running and strength/circuit training, your tibialis anterior becomes stronger because it is a muscle. And when it becomes stronger and thicker, it acts as natural armor in a way. And therefore, it helps to provide that crucial support, especially since it absorbs a huge amount of impact when you are training Muay Thai, kicking, and whatnot, in addition to protecting the bone and the nerves underneath. So when we're talking about true shin conditioning, like true lasting results, it's a 3-part system. So bone remodeling leads to denser bones. Nerve desensitization leads to quieter pain alarm systems. And the stronger tibialis anterior leads to better support for all of that involved. So now that you understand this as a 3-part process, hopefully now you can see why when people just zero in on getting stronger shins, they can be dangerously impatient with the process, expecting immediate results. Like, oh, I rolled my shins, I better get harder shins by tomorrow. So I guess with this section, let's talk about what not to do. First, do not roll hard objects on your shin. Glass bottles, wooden rolling pins, baseball bats, metal poles. It's a huge waste of time. It's really, really painful. Like, oh yeah, you're hardcore, you can go through the pain, but it's just unnecessary and actually harmful. So let's go back to Wolff's Law for a second. Your bone adapts to the stress. It adapts to impact. And rubbing a bottle on your shin doesn't do either. It doesn't shake that entire bone to stimulate remodeling, which is something that it needs. When you are throwing a kick, there's vibrations all throughout the bone, all throughout your body. When you're just sitting there and rolling something on your shins, it doesn't do that. And also when you are rolling your shins, you're applying uneven pressure and it ends up causing soft tissue damage. So a lot of people start bruising and then they think like, oh, with the bruising, it must be helping, but you're just further inflaming the area. And it doesn't actually strengthen the bone one bit. The second one that I wish people would stop doing, stop kicking immovable objects. Stop going up to the street light posts, stop kicking the meter post, stop kicking banana trees, those poor trees, stop kicking baseball bats. When you're thinking about a heavy bag, right? A heavy bag, even the really hard ones, they still yield because they move. They move and it absorbs and distributes the impact. A tree, a metal pole does not. You are far more likely to cause a major fracture or long-term tissue damage by kicking an immovable object than you are to build bone resistance. So please just don't do it. And I know that like Wolff has that really famous video of him kicking down a banana tree and under, I don't know, was it 20 seconds? And everyone wants to recreate that video. They come to Thailand, they see all these banana trees. They're like, oh, I need to do it for Instagram. If no one takes a video of it, then they're not going to end up doing it, right? Let's be real about that. But I don't want you guys to watch this video of Wolff doing it and thinking like, oh, this is what all Thai fighters do. They don't. Not a single Thai fighter kicks banana trees. Why? Because there are plenty of heavy bags. There are plenty of fight opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities to train and like kick Thai pads. No one needs to kick a banana tree to sharpen their shins in any way. Again, it's just something influenced by the age of social media. Don't mistake that with an accurate, scientifically backed method. It's not even a traditional method. Equipment. So again, like the ones we talked about, heavy bags, Thai pads, shin guards, they provide a consistent, safe, and better result when it comes to actually conditioning your shins with much lower risk of injury. There's also something else where I think it's called stick striking, where you and a training partner, you guys will both have bamboo sticks, wooden sticks, and you guys will tap your shins for each other. From my research, if you're using something that's a more natural material, so think about like rattan, I don't know how to pronounce it, or bamboo rather than something metal, and it's pliable, right? Keyword pliable. It can be somewhat effective for just nerve desensitization if and only if it is done with control and with careful progression. So the first time you do it shouldn't be hard and you shouldn't be doing it for a long time. But if you do choose this method, by the end of like month 2, month 3, you can add a little bit of intensity and also lengthen the time. But again, for most people, it's unnecessary. There's a risk of injury, of course, because we are human. And I think there is a big part of all of us that wants to jump the gun a little bit, especially when with consistent training, a heavy bag does the job just fine, even better. Those are the major myths. So let's go into what is actually helpful, aka the evidence-based methods. So how do we do Shin conditioning right? We always want to use an approach that is progressive. And you've probably figured this out by now, but the golden standard is actually just a heavy bag. That's it. Nice and simple, maybe not as social media leaning, skewing as kicking a banana tree is, but kicking a heavy bag is the most effective and scientifically supported method to condition your shins. It provides the controlled impact needed for bone remodeling. It stimulates fighting, which is what Muay Thai training originated for, and maybe even the other way around. Start with a softer bag if some of the harder bags make it so that you can't get through an entire round. Focus on good technique to the best of your ability, because we all have to start somewhere, and maybe in the beginning it's not the best, but focus on having the good technique. And over the course of a couple months, depending on how much you train a week, you can move on to a firmer bag. Okay, what's best after heavy bag? Pad work. This is great because there are also different densities of pads. If you ever use any of the, I think they call them K pads, they're probably the hardest pads ever. Even the twin special pads are pretty hard. And then there are also the ones that are a little bit too soft. And then there are ones that are in that center line. Pad work is great because you're working with someone else. So you're not just kicking for the sake of Shin conditioning, but you're getting your workout in and you're getting adjustments, corrections, learning technique, improving your aerobic capacity, and you're forced to make proper contact too. Because if you kick with your toes or if you kick with the side of your leg, it's going to hurt you, or it's going to make your technique not as great as it can be. So similar to the heavy bags, you can start with the softer Thai pads and then work your way up to the harder ones. Although even for me, even though I've been training for a really long time, I still don't really favor kicking the super, super hard brick-like ones. I prefer the ones where the density is kind of in the middle, but even within the middle, I like it to be a little bit more firm. I don't like the really soft ones because I feel like they just can't absorb impact that well, but they are great for beginners. And then after pad work would be running and plyometrics. So basically anything where your body is lifting up temporarily and coming back down, lifting up temporarily and coming back down. Most fighters run, and they run a lot. Running provides this repetitive weight-bearing impact, and that alone is a powerful signal for your body to strengthen the bones in your lower legs. Simple plyometrics also achieve this, such as jumping rope. This provides the stimulus needed in order to build up that bone and that tissue strength. After that would be strength training. This is the one that a lot of Muay Thai practitioners are still missing. So remember the tibialis anterior? It kind of works as this muscular armor, and you can build it through consistent resistance training. If you're a fighter, I do hope that you're doing resistance training. So think about compound movements like squats, deadlifts, lunges. These all apply mechanical loading to your bones and to build a supporting musculature. And the next best way is controlled sparring. So we're talking light to medium contact with shin guards on. Technical sparring, it can introduce your shins to the very specific kind of impact of bone and bone, eventually, if you are planning on fighting, in a controlled manner. And this is a very, very specific kind of adaptation for your muscles and application for your skills that a heavy bag can't replicate. You can also achieve this during pad work. Like some trainers, they wear shin guards during pad work and they will throw kicks at you, so you block them. So if you wanted to combine a couple of them into one, you can definitely combine this one along with the pad work. So again, the 5 evidence-based methods for shin conditioning: golden standard, kicking a heavy bag. Then is pad work. Then is running and plyometrics. 4th is strength training. And then 5th is technical sparring. So here's your action plan. So you have the science. How do you put this into application? My first piece of advice is to be patient. And however patient you think you need to be even more patient than that. This is not a 30-day challenge. It's not a, can I do this in 1 week? True bone conditioning is a minimum 1 to 2 year process. Of course, you're going to feel initial improvements when it comes to pain tolerance in as little as 4 to 6 weeks, assuming you are training consistently. But if we're talking about substantial changes to your bone density, so this is the stuff that actually matters, that takes 3 to 6 months of consistent work. And your bones will continue to adapt for up to 2 years. Second piece of advice, the 10% rule. When it comes to all kind of conditioning, including bone conditioning, shin conditioning, progressive overload, you have to give your body time to adapt. Don't try to go from 10 kicks to 100 kicks overnight. A good rule of thumb is to increase volume or intensity by no more than 10% per week. This allows your body's repair cycle to keep up with the stress that you're giving it. So if you just wanted it in numbers, if you are currently training just 60 minutes a week, then the next week, if you're adding 10% onto that, then it's an hour and 6 minutes. Don't try to go from, I train 1 hour this week, the week after that, my second week of training, I'm all of a sudden going to train 10 hours. Don't do that. And this is not just for shin conditioning, but also applies for, I think, when you take a break and come back and to avoid being burnt out or overtraining. Third piece of advice, what you do outside of kicking is just as important when it comes to conditioning your shins. You have to look at your nutrition in order to do that. You can't build stronger bones if you don't give it what it needs. You need calcium. You need vitamin D, which helps you absorb the calcium. And this is non-negotiable. And you need adequate protein for bone remodeling and muscle repair. Also, don't forget that you need rest days. Recovery is actually what helps you become stronger. The bone rebuilds itself during rest. Your body rebuilds itself during rest. Muscle rebuilds itself during rest. While you're training, while you're doing the active stuff, you're making tears, you're making these microscopic fractures. You are tearing things down. And then it's only during rest where they get to build back up and become stronger than they were. So that means getting consistently 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep and at least 1 full day of actually resting in the week. Overtraining is the number 1 cause of stress fractures. And this is something that a lot of Muay Thai fighters struggle with. Don't forget to work your mobility as well. If you have really, really tight calf muscles, it can put a lot of extra stress onto your tibia, aka your shin. So remember to stretch your calves regularly, use a foam roller, stretch your hamstrings while you're at it, and stretch your hips. This is all stuff you should be doing anyway if you're training Muay Thai, so you can get the movement that you need and prevent injury. You can also strengthen the tibialis anterior. One way to do this is to sit on a bench, a chair, where your feet are touching the floor, and you try to lift a very light kettlebell with just your foot. And this helps to build that muscle, the tibialis anterior. It's also one of the best ways to prevent shin splints. So if you do get shin splints when you run, this is something you might want to try. If you don't have a kettlebell, you can also do this with resistance bands. And the final most important piece of advice, you need to learn the difference between good pain and bad pain. Good pain is actually just extreme uncomfortability. It's this kind of like aching soreness, and you'll feel it across your whole shin. The most important thing is that it's manageable. It could be sore during training, but it feels better 24 to 48 hours later. This is the good pain of adaptation, of getting your actual shin conditioning happening. Bad pain should be like a red light. Stop. It's sharp, localized, zinging pain. You can point to the exact spot that hurts, and it's pain that worsens as you keep training. The pain persists even when you're just walking or resting. This is your body's way of screaming, stop. It's not toughness to keep working through this. It's the start of what could be a stress fracture. Don't ignore it, because this is how you could end up being sidelined for the next half year to a full year. So shin conditioning isn't a hack. There are no hacks. It's also not a myth though. What it is a long-term biological process that requires consistency, patience, and more than anything for you to be intelligent and put your ego to the side. You don't need to be a brute about forcing it to happen. You need to be more like a scientist. Give your body progressive stimuli and then give it the fuel and the rest it needs to adapt. Kick the bag, go for a run, lift some weights, eat your protein, eat your greens, get enough sleep. That's it. That's the real secret. Anything that you want lasting results for is never going to happen overnight. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm all about debunking anything that claims to give you instant results. Thank you again for tuning in to listen. I hope you learned something today. If you have any crazy, funny, maybe scary stories of shin conditioning, either for yourself or any of your teammates or that you've heard, let me know. Let me know in the comments somehow. And if you do want to read an article about shin conditioning, I do have an article up on muay-ying.com that I've actually published several months ago prior to releasing this episode. But I try to have my content in different methods because I know not everyone likes to read articles and also not everyone likes to listen to podcasts. But if you are someone who prefers reading, or if you know someone who doesn't like listening to podcasts but does prefer to read, you can find a link to the article in the show notes. And we'll see you in the next one.